Okay, wrestling fans, welcome back to another episode of Wrestler Weekly Conversations. You can follow us on Twitter at Wrestler Weekly, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Wrestler Weekly. You can get the book Family Bacon Wrestling by Scotty Richardson at Amazon, and see us at Pro Wrestling Tees with our Pro Wrestling Tees shop. You can get some Wrestler Weekly swag. And so today we have for you here in season 3 a returning guest, somebody I really enjoy talking to. He's the author of 2 great books. You might remember he wrote recently Lance by Chance. We'll show this. I know with the virtual background it doesn't come up so good, but we'll post those on the website and you know the social medias. But he's also wrote a new book. And it's called WrestleVille, the Pro Wrestling Vault, Volume 1. And it's a great book of stories, not just from some mainstream pro wrestlers, but some indie wrestlers with some great stories, full of great photos. And we can't wait to talk about this book with him. The great Vinny Berry from the Lone Star State of Texas is here with us. What's up, Vinny? Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Oh, anytime. So, we spoke last season about Lance by Chance and your
Right.
dealings with Lance Von Erich, and that was a great book. If you guys did not pick that up, and you're a Von Erich fan, there, Vinny's got a clearer shot of it. And just a great read. And you know, so many times people wondered what was Lance's side of the story. You know, and even too, you know, hearing some of the, even a little bit of a reconciliation with Kevin and Lance. So very, very cool. But a great book that was, Wrestling as Von Erich, Lance by Chance. But now, Vinny, the new one, WrestleVille, the Pro Wrestling Vault, Volume 1. We're both with our copies here. And so, Vinny, tell me about what the inspiration for WrestleVille was.
Well, I started a website called WrestleVille about 4 years ago. That whole experience led me to finding Lance Von Erich and writing that book. But I wanted a place where I could, you know, post stories and write stories and post stories, and like a wrestling hub. You know, it was like everything I was looking for out there, I wasn't really finding what I was looking for. You know, I was finding news and you know, rumors or reviews and, you know, speculations and all this stuff. And, you know, I thought, you know, I wanted a place where I could read some stories and read about the wrestlers who I wanted to read about. And so that led me to do WrestleVille. When I was looking for another project to do after the Lance Von Erich book, I'd had some ideas. I was hitting the wall a couple of times, you know, with, you know, it wasn't going quite like I wanted to. And I had talked to my friend Jean-Paul LeBlanc in New Orleans, and he was like, look, if you ever need pictures from the Gulf Coast, I have them. I mean, he does. He has thousands. I haven't even scratched the surface going through those things. And then talking to him and talking to Kenny Casanova and kind of getting some ideas. And he was like, look, you got all these stories, and he's got all these pictures, and you guys, you know, obviously work well together. And why don't you guys, you know, do a collaboration? And so that's what we did. We took his pictures and my stories, we put them together. You know, we mixed in some like on the pages that would have been the blank white pages, we went ahead and we put like former NWA world champions on there. You know, we tried to fill that space. So you're when you get this book, you know, it's full of content, it's full of pictures. We called it the Pro Wrestling Vault because you don't know what's in it until you open it and get in there. And there's a lot of nice treasures in there. You know, there are a lot of nice gems in this book. And that's why I think wrestling fans are going to like this so much, is because it is a reference book. You are going to discover who you're not only going to find out things, that you might not have known about the wrestlers that you have heard of and you like, but you're going to discover some wrestlers that have been on the scene for a long, long time that haven't got the exposure that they've deserved.
Yeah, and this is great because as you look through, and Vinny, you talked about this, the photography, the photos in the book, and you have, I mean, everybody in here. There's so many great names who not just worked the Gulf Coast years ago, but who have been cutting their teeth on the independent scenes here. And you have veterans of that independent scene. You have people who then ended up getting signed to AEW and WWE. This appeals to mass generations of fans. And I think, you and I were talking about this a little bit last night. The stories and about the wrestlers. Wrestling is about connection to the wrestlers. And I found that, like I said, you and I, there's a great story here on Bobby Fulton. We talked the Fantastics last night. I grew up on the Fantastics, loved the Fantastics. That stuck out to me. Tim Storm, right, who really came on the scene as a big name in just the last few years, is in there. But then you have your guys like Vordell Walker and Eric Andrews and folks like that, you're reading about and you're learning about them. And even when you had said too about stories that you wouldn't have expected, things that you didn't know about wrestlers you grew up on. I remember Chaz Taylor. So when I'm reading about Chaz Taylor, I'm thinking, oh, there might be some global stuff in here. And his portion, he's talking stories about Owen Hart, his experience with Owen Hart, which was really, really cool. I never knew that was a connection. So there's really a lot of things, Vinny. What was the most surprising to you? Like, what were the stories that really stuck out to you that said, this has to be told? This guy hasn't gotten the recognition that they deserve, and or gal. There's some female wrestlers in the book too. What stories really stuck out to you?
Well, like the story of Mike Rapada.
Yeah.
That stuck out to me. It was wrestlers like him who you would think that I should know who he is because he's held the NWA World Heavyweight title twice.
Yeah.
But he wrestled in the early 2000s, kind of in that era where there was no NWA television. And, a lot of people didn't even, might have been under the belief that the NWA, for a certain period of time didn't even exist, right? Because it was so...
It was really independent wrestling,
It was real at that time. It was really independent wrestling. So, his story fascinated me. I like Bobby Fulton's story because when I reached out to Bobby Fulton, it's like you can't talk about you can't talk to Bobby Fulton without talking about Tommy Rogers, and you can't talk about Ricky Morton without talking about Robert Gibson. Of
course.
And so I wanted to, because I lived in Dallas when the Fantastics were wrestling there. So I had this personal connection. I've seen them in person and wrestle. And, I wanted to do something that was like a tribute to Tommy, like to capture his memory or his legacy and share it with people that might not have known who he was, and I was really pleased with how the story came out. Bobby Fulton liked this story too. And, for those who don't know Bobby Fulton, or, well, if you don't know Bobby Fulton or Tommy Rogers, you do walk away with a sense of, feeling like them now, right? Because, it talks about how they got started, how they got paired up. It talks about their feud with the sheep herders who became the herders.
Yeah.
But these guys wrestled in like they did like 30 cage matches in a row, with the sheep herders. And so, that story's in there. And then you hear about how tough he is. The guy wrestled with a broken neck in Japan.
Yeah.
And so that story's in there. And it's little stuff like that that I didn't know. You
Yeah.
know, I had no clue of any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And when you hear it, especially from Bobby Fulton's words, it's special and it's memorable.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, right, it puts so much weight. And when you talk about these stories, and especially the Bobby Fulton and Tommy Rogers one, because obviously Tommy Rogers passed away young, but to see the connection that they had, and to have these two guys, that, because it doesn't always work that way, right? On camera it's one thing, behind the scenes it's another. But these were two guys who were really, really close. You can see how it affected Bobby that he's not here. And so I thought it was cool to kind of read Bobby's take on that. But another thing too, and you mentioned tributes, there's a few very nice tributes in here. Without giving too much away, there's a short thing at the end of the book about Daphne, which I thought was phenomenal. Working in the mental health field myself, to see that in there with the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, I just thought was such a classy touch. Daphne, I remember, I was a teenager, I was in my late teens during that WCW run, and I think all of us kind of had that crush on Daphne, that we were like, oh, this girl's really cool, and to see how many people loved her. And I think that's some of the things that you see about some of the other folks in here, right?
Well, sticking with
yeah.
Daphne for a minute.
Yeah, yes, please. Yeah.
When she passed away, I was formatting the book, and it was, I don't know. I mean, it was just one of those that just kind of hit me hard. And
yeah,
but it wasn't just me, it was a lot of
so
people.
many.
I took my dog to the groomer like that week or whatever, and he was talking about it, and it was all over online. And so, we had that picture. I wanted to put it in there, but what's so fitting about that is that Shay Summers talks about Daphne in her story.
Yeah.
And, Shay went to a seminar and Daphne was there, and she talks about some of the things that she learned from Daphne, and she, some of the things that, she was really, I guess, touched by Daphne, because she was like, hey, here's this woman who was successful in wrestling, and I had the opportunity to learn from her. And Shay was like writing stuff down and taking notes, and so it was memorable to her. And so, it was obvious that Daphne touched a lot of people, and so it was just fitting to put it in there. It was timely because I had to go back and kind of correct some stuff before it went back to the printers, and I had the book when that happened. And so, like I said, it was upsetting, and like we came across that picture, and I just felt like it was necessary.
Yeah. And again, to me, it was such a wonderful gesture and great move. And again, Daphne's period in pro wrestling was relatively short. But she made an impact in that time, and again, I think those are the connection pieces when you talk about Shay Summers and the story of, oh, I learned from her. And again, the connection that you see. Another person who was featured in the book, who again, unfortunately passed away, was Tracy Smothers. And, not knowing a lot about Tracy, before his passing, obviously I knew of his work in the ring, and I knew where he had been and all those things, but seeing the connection that he made with so many, that love to teach, that love to mentor people, how he really left such a wonderful legacy that was even so much bigger than, I think, his in-ring. You know what I mean? The stuff he did in ring was great, but the person Tracy Smothers was quite a lot bigger.
Yeah, you hear in wrestling a lot of times that people want to leave the sport better than they found it.
Yeah,
he did it.
He did. Yeah,
he did it. And I say that because you know, not only did I hear the same exact story from Chris Michaels,
Yeah.
but I heard the same exact story from Jeremiah Plunkett.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, and those are just two guys.
Yeah.
I bet there's more. You know,
oh yeah.
There's got to be more, but that was his thing. You know, he was just like, hey, you know, he would give you the time. You know, he would,
Yeah.
you know, hey, try this, do this, you know, or,
Yeah.
you know, I'll watch your match. And, you know, it was, again, you know, that was something that he wanted to do.
Mm.
That he
Yeah.
felt obligated, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
hey, I spent some time here, people help me, it's time for me to pass it on. That's
Yeah.
very respectful.
It's a beautiful legacy too, because a lot of times people just assume that, you know, wrestlers hang on because maybe they're not financially well off or whatever the case may be. But Tracy, it was this love of wrestling, you know what I mean? And passing on that, and not, you know, it just goes to show not everybody who should do the right thing does, but to see that he really did want to give back and the effect that it had on people. You know, what a beautiful life and what a beautiful legacy. Another connection that I had made in reading this, and we spoke about Chaz Taylor a little bit further, but you know, talking a little bit more about his dad, Tuck Taylor, you know, and again, you know, to kind of get a little bit more of a story out of, okay, well, Tug was Chaz's dad, like we know that, but to have a little bit of that, and again, to hear Chaz's words and to hear how this was written. So I thought it was cool to kind of get that double, you know what I mean? Like I said, we had the great story, but then we had the little bit of a tribute to Tug in there.
Yeah, I met both those men in Brownsville at some shows. Matter of fact, I met Chaz first. But you know, and if you ever met Chaz, the first time you met him, you kind of felt like you met him before.
Yeah.
That was kind of, you know, and I was like, where do I know you from? He goes, well, I've been wrestling for all these years. And I said, yeah, but where do I know you? You know what I mean? It was, it felt like I had met him, you know, but he was very friendly, and, you know, he treated me as if he'd known me, you know?
Yeah.
And so he was a very easy guy to talk to. He was one of the first people that I reached out to when I wanted to start writing about wrestling, because from that time that I met him, we stayed in contact with each other. I had some pictures of him. We became friends on Facebook. I would send some pictures that I took. I took some pictures of him and his dad. So a lot of the pictures of Chaz and his dad, most of those I took.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I shared those with him, and he would always let me know how his dad was doing. And I'd ask about his dad, and he'd tell me, oh, he's not doing so good, or he's doing better today. And then he came back one day and he reached out to me and told me that his dad passed away. And, you know, and I wanted to do something, you know, because again, I love wrestling, and I, you know, I appreciate the fact that, you know, these men and women, you know, put their bodies on the line to entertain us. And he spent years and years in the business, and, you know, wasn't what I would call a top tier main event wrestler, but he'd been around for a long time, and he stepped in the ring with top tier wrestling names. And so I just wanted to do something for him and write about him. And it just so happened that, you know, Chaz opens up, you know, he's like the second or third story in the book. And then halfway through the book or near the end, then there's a story about his dad. And it's more of a tribute to him after he passed away. So, you know, the book kind of, throughout the book, as you're reading it, it does kind of segue into each other. Like the stories do kind of lead up to one. And that was like the magical thing that happened with that book. I hate to say, you know, the organic. It happened organically, but it
But it really
did,
does,
you know?
yeah.
You know, and you know, because the stories like with Tracy Smothers and
Mhm.
Chris Michaels, they
Yeah,
tie in together. The story with Van Horn and Dale Wild, they tie in together.
yeah,
The story with Barrett Brown, Eric Andrews, and you know, um, Mr. USA, they all tie together.
yeah,
And then Chase Owens and Ricky Morton, and I mean, it just
yeah,
on and on, and there's just such a cohesiveness. You know, it's almost like um, it, just the way that it fell into place. It was just, you know, again, it was almost magical. You know, but I think people are gonna like this because there's 35 short stories in it. And, you know, we've got stories in here with Bordeaux Walker, Chaz Taylor, Damian Wayne, Tim Storm, Greg Anthony, Barrett Brown, Eric Andrews, Bobby Fulton, Tim Storm, Tracy Smothers. We got Harley Race, C.W. Anderson, Larry Henning, Dale Wild, and Bill Dundee, and just on and on and on. There's 35 stories, 32 different wrestlers. And, you know, I just think that, and not only the stories, but, you know, you got about 400 pictures in here too. So,
yeah,
you know, it's very content heavy, and a lot of people told me it feels like a reference book or a history book.
yeah.
And I mean, that's pretty much spot on.
Yeah, and I had said this to you when we were talking, you know, when you look at the photos and you're flipping through the book, and you know, a lot of these too, you're matching up names with the photos, you know, as you're reading, and you're,
Right.
oh, this is so and so. And you know, we mentioned yesterday too, we are talking about Bruce Tharp, right? You know, another, you know, former owner of the NWA. And I love too just all the different references to the NWA because of the fact that you know, we had talked about just a few minutes ago about how, you know, people thought, oh, you know, whatever happened to the NWA? It was still around. I remember here in New Jersey, there was a prominent NWA satellite here, NWA New Jersey, and I can remember, you know, the world champion coming through here and wrestling and different things, and then even up to a few years ago, you know, before even the Billy Corgan ownership, it was thriving on the independent scene. And
Right.
so it's really cool to kind of see that, to kind of let people know what the NWA had been up to and doing over the last few years. But again, you know, this and this was what I wanted to lean into. What we talked about the other night, it has the feel to me of those old George Napolitano books, that were very photography heavy. But there was good writing, and because George was very talented, and him and Bert Sugar would release these books, and
Right.
you know, but this is that's the feel that this gave me as I flipped through it. I think the photos add so much to everything you're doing, and it's just so cool uh, to see some of these things, and to see, like I said, that the Gulf Coast really is, you know, a hotbed for independent pro wrestling.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it stretches from Texas to Louisiana, Mississippi,
Yeah,
Alabama, Florida, you know, parts
yeah,
of Georgia. I mean, well, you know, all of Georgia, right?
yeah. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah,
Um,
and yeah, and you know, with the talent that's out there, you know, it's like, I mean, I know who these people are because, you know, I mean, it's kind of in my backyard, you know.
yeah,
I mean, being in Texas, and of course having the connection with John Paul, and you know, he's always telling me, or hey, you got to see this guy, or I'll watch this, or people send me videos. So it's kind of what I tune into.
mm,
But you know, we thought about putting Gulf Coast in the title, and I didn't want to pigeonhole it because I didn't want people, you know, I mean, even with the Lance Von Erich book, everyone, you know, a lot of people said, well, I thought it was about Lance Von Erich.
Yeah.
Well, it is about Lance Von Erich, but you got to remember, he was there, when, they brought him in right after David died. He was
Yeah.
there when Gino Hernandez died. He was there when Mike Von Erich had the toxic shock syndrome, and when he died, and when Kerry had the motorcycle accident, and so
He saw all
he was
those
a very
things. Yeah.
integral- yeah, very integral part to that whole puzzle. And
Yeah.
so that's what a lot of people, so putting Gulf Coast on there, I didn't want to be, it's a book about the Gulf Coast, because the pictures, a majority of the pictures are from the Gulf Coast region. There's no
Yeah.
doubt about it, but stories are from all over the United States.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's
Yeah.
what I think is so cool, because, you've got like these veterans like, Bill Dundee, Harley Race,
Yeah.
Ricky Morton, Bobby
Yeah.
Fulton, Tracy Smothers, C.W. Anderson. But then you
Yeah.
got these guys and this young lady, Shay Summers, Dale Wild,
Yeah.
Eric Andrews, Van
Barbie
Horn.
Hayden's in there. Yeah.
Yeah, people who, have been grinding it out too, but you just don't know who they are. And it gives them an opportunity not only to get exposure, but for the wrestling fan to say, wow, because we know who's on TV, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
turn on
Of
the
course.
TV, but these people are kind of flying under the radar a little bit.
Yeah.
And so, that was what was so, what I really was driving me to, when I started Wrestleville, and I have on the back of the book, where is Wrestleville? Wrestleville is everywhere. It's where wrestling lives.
Yeah.
And that is, really kind of my motto, is like, some people will say, well, that guy's only been wrestling 6 months. Goes, he's been wrestling 6 months. We've never wrestled at all,
Yeah. Yeah.
Give him some credit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and even too, you would mention people who stories deserve to be told and haven't been, because maybe there's not a national contract attached to their name or their character, doesn't mean they're any less of a professional wrestler than the guys that and girls you see on AEW or WWE. These are folks grinding it out, doing it for a lot less. And doing it because they love it and they work just as hard. Like I said, you have people, Eric Andrews, national heavyweight champion, right? Barbie Hayden, NWA women's world champion. These things still mean something, and to give them the credit that they deserve. That's one of the things that you said that really, to me, that's like, that's something that makes me want to jump into this book even more, that these people have stories worth telling. We should give them the credit and the exposure that they do deserve. And maybe it does, you know what I mean? And I'm sure it does mean something to them. Hey, I read about you in this book. You know what I mean? That's got to be a very powerful thing, and I'm sure it means a lot to them to be featured in this book, and to get their name in print and where it should be.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And, when you dive into this thing and what's so cool about it too, Mike, is that, you don't have to commit yourself to, like, you can read 2 or 3 stories, put it down, come back, read 2 or 3 stories, get your wrestling fix and come back. It's not like, when I was up over the summer, I went to a few shows and I was selling books, and people would say, well, that Lance book looks so interesting, but I have 5 wrestling books that I can't finish. And it's like, well, I was curious, why is that? And I'd ask them, a lot of the people I know are writing, like they'll tell me, like, well, the book has 400 pages in it. And it's like, ooh, it's almost like that's a selling point, right? But, for me, 400-page book is intimidating, because I'm like, I'll never finish it, man. And so I need something that's easy to read, easy to digest, something I can comprehend, and something where I don't feel like, that I'm never going to finish,
Yeah.
And I think this is, I didn't read create the wheel. I mean, you already mentioned George Napolitano's books. So I
Yeah.
remember those books, and I had a
Yeah.
couple of them, and they
Yeah.
were easy to read because
Absolutely.
when you got tired of reading, you could go through the pictures, right? And you can
Yeah.
do the same thing with this. And I just haven't seen a compilation like that in a while, and
Yeah.
I was looking for something like that, and that
Yeah.
was one of the reasons of, you know, I wanted to do this. I wanted to put these short stories. I wanted to do short stories. You know, I've always wanted to write a book about short stories, but I was
Yeah.
like, I don't have any short stories. And Kenny was like, you don't?
But
You
there's a
don't
lot
have
of people who
any?
do. Yeah.
And I said, oh yeah, but I wasn't thinking about those. And he goes,
Yeah.
do something with those. And so, you know, that's exactly what we did.
And again, you know, another author that this reminds me of, a great sports writer out of Cleveland. His name is Terry Pluto, and he wrote books on the NBA and the ABA, among others. But it's a collection of stories as told from different viewpoints, different players, all that stuff. And again, similar to this, and you said it. We talked about this when we were talking yesterday. Was it is easy to read. It is easy to pick up, get into a few stories, and then come back to it, you know. And one of the things too that really stands out again, to me, that comes out, and even as I heard you talking about the book, and when we had first connected about this book, and even the Lance Von Erich book, was the passion that you put into it, the passion behind what you're doing. You really believe in the project. You really believe, and it's so strong and so evident when we speak. And that love of wrestling. And I think that those are things that you can't manufacture. And I love that Wrestleville is anywhere wrestling happens, you know? And so, folks, we want to tell you how you can get this as well, Vinny, but there's also a way that fans can get this book and get some autographs as well.
That's
Why don't you
right.
tell us about that? And so this way the fans know where to get that.
Okay, so if you go to Russellville.com or lancebychance.com, either one of the sites is going to get you where you can buy the book. So lancebychance.com, and inside every book there's a signature of one of 14 wrestlers. This book actually has an autograph of Big Time Josh Lewis. He is from the Indiana area, and he's got a very interesting story. He's a bodybuilder as well, and he was a bodybuilder first, and then he had met Rob Conway on that circuit, and they became friends. And you know, he broke into professional wrestling, and you know, that story is in the book. And you know, and this guy is a serious bodybuilder. There's a picture of him here. I mean, he is trophies. I mean, this guy has competed for years and years, and he's got a very interesting story. And he looks like he looks like somebody, right? And you know, because of his body. And going back to the autographs, there's one of 14 you can get. Chaz Taylor's one, Damian Wayne is one, Tim Storm, Bobby Fulton, C.W. Anderson, and let's see who else off the top of my head. Dale Wild's in there, Van Horn, Chris Michaels, Mr. USA. Mr. USA was one-time NWA World Heavyweight Champion. So that comes with every book. They're randomly selected. They're in the books. It's just really the luck of the draw, but it's a nice touch. And you know, you get like a little souvenir along with the book.
That's awesome. And so guys, you know, check it out, Wrestleville.com, lancebychance.com. And again, something you mentioned, Vinny, that I think is really, really great, is the length of the books. They are easy to read. These are not 400-page books, about 200 to 250 pages. You know what I mean? It's a nice digestible read. And again, too, you know, you take a look at both stories, you're really getting more than what you bargained for here. Like, this is not just, oh, it's just the Gulf Coast. Like you said, you didn't want to pigeonhole it. There's so much in here. So many wrestlers that you're familiar with, so many wrestlers that you're going to learn about. and read their stories. And the same thing with Lance by Chance, like you said, you're not just telling the story of Lance Von Erich, you're getting all that extracurricular stuff that happened. You're getting a little bit of what Lance did or Ricky did after being, you know, a Von Erich and things like that, how it all came about. So these are chock full of it packs a punch in a very digestible size. And
Yeah.
so like Vinny said, for you wrestling fans out there, dig into a couple of stories. And the great thing too, Vinny, is that it sounds like there's going to be more to come as well.
Oh, there's a volume 2 already in the works, and I actually have a little time off around the holidays, and so I've been working and doing some work toward that. But I anticipate it to be out about a year from now.
Okay.
And going back to getting the book, if you want to pay by PayPal, Cash App, just email me. My email address is on the lancebychance.com. It's where you contact the author. You can go ahead, reach out to me. I'll let you know how to pay that way and what the prices are, and then we'll go from there. A lot of people like to have that convenience of PayPal and Cash App, and so we have that availability. It's just not on the site.
Awesome. So again, PayPal, there's more than one way to pay. And again, how easy is it on the Cash Apps these days? So again, and two, you're contacting Vinny himself, you know, so that's, I think, is a really cool personal touch too. You know what I mean? He's a man who has put in the work to deliver some really great wrestling products out there for you fans. So visit the websites, visit wrestleville.com, you know, visit lancebychance.com. Take a look and see that these books are, again, digestible, easy to read books. If you're a fan of classic wrestling, if you're a fan of independent wrestling, if you're a fan of old school wrestling or modern day wrestling, there is something here for you, really something for every wrestling fan in your life. And again, if you love these, volume 2 of the Wrestling Vault, the Pro Wrestling Vault, Wrestleville.
Oh, it's going to be good, man. I'm really pleased with how it's coming along, and I'm really pleased of what's in it. I kind of don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but there's some interesting stuff in it, and it was some stuff that I held back for it, you know, intentionally, because I thought it'd be a nice touch. And also going to wrestleville.com, I started doing some podcasts last year. My podcasts are easy to listen to. Some are 15, 20, 30 minutes. I have like maybe one that's 40 minutes long. I'm not into long podcasts, you know, because, you know, my philosophy is that the mind can only handle what the butt could take, you know, and you're sitting down listening to something is like, you know, I get a little impatient. And so 15, 20-minute podcast is right up my alley. And so you can listen to a few of those, and I go right into the interviews with the wrestlers. You know, I don't do reviews. I don't do news. You know, I just introduce my guest, and I have Bam Bam Malone on there. I have Dante Smiley. I have Thunder Rosa. I have Just Incredible. Tim Storm's on there. PJ Black is on there. Tokyo Monster Cahagas. Jackson Stone. I have a lot of guys on there. So, you know, very interesting stuff. There's even an interview on there with Jimmy Rave last year before he passed away. So, you know, there's some content on there. There's some history on there, and there is some legacy on there. And it's all for the love of wrestling.
Well, and that's why we're here, you know, and you know, wrestling fans, we want to thank Vinny for his contributions to what he's done and just celebrating pro wrestling. And again, like we mentioned, that's why we're here. We love pro wrestling. We love the memories that it gave us, and hopefully the memories it will continue to give us. So that's going to wrap us up tonight, folks. We thank you so much for joining us here for another great interview. And when you can rest assured, when volume 2 comes out, we're going to have Vinny back and just continue to celebrate the great work that he's doing. He's a friend of ours at Wrestler Weekly. We appreciate everything he's done, as we've appreciated all the guests that have come on this season. So thank you guys again for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully you'll stick around for some more. And just thank you guys so much. Have a great one. And as Bill Apter says, we will see you at the matches.